Hopefully, we can get this out in at least 3 parts and not 4 or 5 or 6.
Hopefully we could do this in 3 parts. Welcome to part 3, everybody. Thankfully, we were almost done. We were done with that last section anyway. But maybe one day we'll get through a podcast without getting cut off midway. I wish I could figure out why I did that. Anyway, on to part 3. On to book reports. Before we do book reports, we're going to start part 3 off with our sponsor section as always. And as always, as of right now, we are not sponsored. To be Cineplex. Anyone wants to sponsor us, we will sell your product. Jordan, do the thing.
We will sell your
Nope, it's too
product.
much. It's too much. It's too much. That's a sneak preview. That's a sneak preview of what we could do for you. Just to start off with, we will sell your product. But until we have a sponsor, as always, this podcast is brought to you by the Arate Podcast Network and aratemedia.org. You can go there right now. You can listen to the audio version of this podcast. You can watch the video. I think they link the video. I'm not sure, they might not. But there's all sorts of other podcasts. There's a musical one. There's the Arate podcast, which is the Artie winning podcast of the year. There's a podcast on wrestling, on Goosebumps. There's a podcast for almost every one of your needs. And if you would like to start a podcast, they are a great resource. You can contact Jake. He will help you get you set up. He's got a great playlist with all kinds of information. Very, very invaluable resource. The reason why this is happening. Also, you can also go check out right now our Artie award-winning podcast, a very special birthday episode that I put together for Jordan. We had a great time. We hung out. We had some special guests, and now as a birthday gift, I presented him with an award-winning podcast.
Best gift ever.
Best gift ever. Yeah, so that's aratemedia.org. Go check them out. They are our friends, and they have been very supportive. And they've said a very many kind thing about us. I don't know how warranted it is, but they've been very kind to us. So go check them out.
We'll just have to live up to those kind words.
Yeah. Oh, we're also coming for podcast of the year next year. Just so they know, that is a thing we're gunning for. We're coming for you. We're gonna take that podcast of the year award next year. So with that having been said, it's time for book reports. So the book reports this week, the assignment was to pick a movie, your favorite movie from, which always just ends up being movie you've seen, but pick your favorite movie or thing from the year you were born, and pick a thing that you haven't seen from that year as well. So Jordan, what is your year? And you get to go first. You could pick the order if you'd like, as always.
I thought you said I wasn't saying my year and that we were making people guess.
No, we're now at the part where we're revealing the year.
Oh, okay. My year is 1991. And I have a few things that we're gonna rapid fire around a bit here before I kind of get to the bulk of my stuff. One of the things that came out on my birth year is Sonic the Hedgehog, which I didn't know came out, according to Wikipedia anyway, came out in North America first.
I didn't know that. I see. It's funny that Sonic came out in 1991. I thought for sure that was 1990, and I was gonna get to talk about Sonic, and when you were like, nope, I do. I was like, rats.
At least, again, unless I'm misunderstanding, a PAL region is Japan, right?
I don't actually know. I want to
Um,
say yeah, no, but I don't actually know.
I Okay. Well, all I know is that according to the Wikipedia, the North America one came out in June of 1991, and the PAL region came out in July.
Interesting. Interesting.
Um,
Yeah, I don't
some
actually
some
know.
something to that effect, anyway. So that's neat. I really like that game, and
Yeah,
Sonic the Hedgehog is one of my favorite characters of
I recently
of
beat that
of
game in the Sonic Mania, not Sonic Mania, Sonic Origin, playing in the anniversary mode, which is in my opinion the best way to play Sonic.
Oh, I mean, it makes it possible. I can't imagine doing those underquatic ruin levels, the water levels,
Yeah.
where you have to do that final part against Robotnik, where you have to jump up through the death trap of spikes and water
It was
and
hard.
everything, and there's no rings and the checkpoint before it. So like, if you lose your rings and then die, you then have to try and do it on all one run without getting hit.
I was
And oh my God, the amount of times I did it over and over and over and over and over. And if I wasn't in anniversary mode where you have infinite lives and I only had 3 lives, then you
yeah.
had to go back to the beginning of the game. Back when we were youngins, man, games sure made they punished you.
I was playing it as Knuckles, and that game's hilarious as Knuckles because he breaks almost the entirety of it. So like he could just
Um,
climb to the top of the level and glide across the entire level, and that's how
yeah,
I got through
yeah.
most of that game in the afternoon up until that level. And that level was very hard. That
That
part,
level is
and
it.
he drops. He's not like Sonic. His jumps aren't as tight, so he's really
Oh
slow.
yeah.
So getting through that was extra difficult as
I
Knuckles.
would say that area is almost impossible as Knuckles because not only do his jumps lose control, but he, unlike Sonic gets up to speed a little bit quicker in
Yeah,
water. Knuckles does not. So getting through those sections is
I can't
again, I
remember.
say borderline impossible.
I can't remember how I ended up
What
doing
I
it.
remember I remember I ended up having to do for as both Knuckles and Sonic is you go to the checkpoint before the final
Yes,
checkpoint and do not get that final
you
checkpoint
can't.
because there are rings that you can then get along the way to the end and
Yeah,
that makes it
you taught
possible.
me that, and I'm glad you did because yeah, there's no way otherwise I would have had to.
Otherwise, you have to try and get it all done in one run. I think you have one bubble, so
Yeah,
you have like one extra hit. Whereas if you are able to get those rings, you can keep collecting the rings, and it makes it slightly less
yeah.
impossible.
I can't remember. I think I had to do something really cheap and like cheat my way to get through. I just don't. I don't remember. I don't remember
I
how I
mean,
got through.
I know for one of the playthroughs that I did, I think it might have been the Knuckles one. I just got irritated and activated the debug
I
mode, just
remember
flew
that. It
myself
just
past
flew
that
yourself
point
through it. Yeah. I mean, there was a
because I
point
because
where
because I was like, why? I'm not doing this to like prove anything. This is supposed to
what's
be fun.
what's funny about the Sonic Origins is in order to get the medals, it doesn't count as long as you're getting 100 rings. It doesn't care whether or not you're in debug mode. So you can just open up debug mode and turn yourself into rings and just get. But it'll only let you do I think a certain amount of the coins per level. So you can't just sit there and one. So you can only get like 5 or 6 per level. So I get 5 or 6, and then I move on to the next level, and then I get 5 or 6, and then I just turn to Supersonic and make myself invincible endlessly, and it made it extra fun.
Wait, you can be Supersonic in Sonic 1
Mm-hmm. If
in that
you
version? Oh, I didn't know that.
if I no yeah no maybe not Sonic 1. It might have been Sonic
What
2.
we're talking, I know in Sonic, I was gonna cheat slightly and talk about something that wasn't from '91, and briefly talk about how, yeah, in that Sonic Origins version of Sonic 2, you could just give yourself 50 rings in the first level, or collect 50 rings in the first level, go and get the Chaos Emerald, and then not beat the level
Yeah,
and get all the Chaos
I
Emeralds that
I
way.
I have to be fair. I haven't played it since Sonic Mania Plus came
You
out.
showed me that.
But yeah, there's an exploit in the where it doesn't count it. It counts it that you've gotten the emeralds, but it doesn't affect the state of it. So yeah, you can just get 50 rings and just keep resetting the level. You can get yourself in
Yeah.
an area where you just get 50 rings, and you can get like from with one checkpoint. You can just keep resetting the level and doing it over and over again. I did it at Aquatic Ruins. There's a nice spot that has exactly 50 rings. But yeah, you can literally just do it in the first level, where you just
Which I did, which I did, and
you
then
go.
you have all the Chaos Emeralds.
To be fair, it's Sonic 2. I think you can get all the emeralds by the end of. There's enough of the checkpoints where you can get all of the emeralds by the end of the second or third level. I think if you know the layout of the map. I
I
think.
could believe that.
So anyway, the
Uh,
next thing. Move on. Moving on.
next thing,
That felt very
uh,
forceful. Move on. No. Moving
next
on.
thing that I wanted to talk about is a show. That's right. I'm not just movies. I talk about games, movies, and TV shows. that came out in '91, which is called
Yeah,
Dinosaurs.
I thought
Um,
I thought that came out later for some reason. I thought that was like 93, 94. I didn't realize it was
nope,
91.
'91,
That
and
show that show's impressive. That I like
that for when it came out, yeah, the puppetry is very and
it holds up. It still looks good.
cool. Well, then that's because it's practical effects, and
Yeah,
practical
absolutely.
effects usually hold up fairly well.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I mean, I'm not going to go into an episode by episode thing because we'd be here all day. But you know, they've got your standard episodes of like the one episode the daughter gets her tail comes in,
The
um,
puberty episode.
which
I know there's the
which
one where
I find funny because um the baby dinosaur is just born with a tail, so their family is very inconsistent rather.
my favorite one is the
Um,
one where Robbie does steroids.
yep, there's that one, or there's the only two-parter in the show, where Robbie goes off to war, to fight.
Such a
I think
weird
it's
plot line for like a family
for
show.
I think it was they're fighting against the four-leggers, and it's over
That's funny.
pistachio beans, like the plants are disappearing or something, and they're like, you know, we're just gonna spit on them, we're just gonna, and then it becomes we're just gonna throw sticks at them and then stones, and then a kid dies and the war ends.
Jeez, that feels dark.
There's a surprising amount of yep, Arete Media. He's like, bro, dinosaurs is my jam. Then you have the episodes where they discover drugs. The
Yeah,
Pistachio War.
yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
Pistachio War.
It's just a good
And
show,
it
man.
has. I didn't get the chance. I unfortunately ran out of time, and there's 4 seasons worth. I got to halfway through season 3, and then I just jumped to the final episode because I wanted to make sure I saw that.
Yeah, the
Because
finale. Yeah,
that episode is dark.
the show ends with all of them dying.
Well, I mean, yes, they are going to. It basically like they've caused all the volcanoes to explode,
Yeah.
and the like sun is being blocked out, and like the winter has come, and it's like, yeah, it's gonna be for like hundreds of years, and the baby's like, are we gonna be okay? And it's kind of like we're
No.
gonna like at the very least we're gonna be together, and like as it fades out, it's like it's the outside of the house, and it's like the snow is up, and it cuts back to the news reporter. um uh I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Hand Up Me. um
That's funny. That's a funny name.
it's a funnier name when you realize that they are controlled by the
Yeah.
Cause We Say So company.
Oh, see, I hear hand up me,
hand,
because
hand
they're puppets.
Hand Up Me. Yes, it's a double entendre where that's probably part of the joke is that, and part of the joke is the media,
Yeah, they're puppets and
the
they have it.
company,
Yeah.
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 Um,
Joke on the corporate media. Yeah.
which which I will say I have one issue with it, and this is okay. So I'm gonna preface this with I know that I don't know what dinosaurs with 100% certainty what dinosaurs ate what food. But not Tyrannosaurus. The horned ones,
Triceratops.
Triceratops. When you hear that,
The-
Howard Hand Up Me. That was it. Yeah. When you hear Triceratops, do you think meat eater?
no, they're definitely herbivores.
Yes, exactly. So, uh, there's two characters that I would have switched what actual dinosaur they were. Um, uh, uh, the dad character's friend is supposed to be like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, so he has like the little tiny arms, but they make him like the dumb buffoon kind of friend character. And then the boss is the Triceratops,
Yeah.
and like they constantly make the joke that like he eats people.
Oh, I'm guessing
So
that's
like
meant to be it, because I would argue that because what it is Earl. They're are they meat eaters? Is that do they eat meat?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Then yeah,
because
you're right. Yeah.
there's the one episode where the son goes to like a vegetarian place, and it's like I think it's supposed to be like a 91 version of like he might be bisexual.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Because like there's a scene where his dad shows up to bring him home and he's like, "You're gonna be a meat eater like the rest of us." And the son is Robbie is like, "Have you ever considered that maybe I was born to do both?"
Oh, interesting. 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 Huh.
And like he goes to like a veggie bar.
Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be a game. Oh, maybe. Yeah, that does certainly sound
That's
like it. Yeah.
that's like it's either that or it's supposed to be like he's a pothead, but to me it reads more like bisexual.
Yeah, yeah, the way you've described it, yeah. And I mean, it's
Um,
just a great, just from a puppetry standpoint, it's a technically, it's one of those shows where when you say it ran 4 seasons, I thought it only ran like two, because I watched a bunch of behind the scenes stuff on it a while ago, and it's a technically difficult show to produce. Like, it's a very
oh, I
difficult show
mean
to produce.
each of the characters has like four people running the puppets.
Yeah,
So uh Arete Media says, and ironically hits on a girl. Lol.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um but no, that's my one thing with the show is I think the boss should have been a different dinosaur.
Interesting.
Like
Yeah.
maybe a raptor, maybe something that's like when you see it, and that's where like the best friend character being a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I don't see Tyrannosaurus Rex and think big dumb goofy friend.
It sounds like they're trying to
I
subvert
see
the idea of, like, obviously you'd expect the T Rex to be a mean guy, and I think that's supposed to be if I had to guess, I'd say
yeah.
that's the joke. Same with the
I
you're
just
expect. Although, to be fair, like at the time, um, um, Land Before Time was yeah, Land Before Time would have come out. So Land Before Time, it was sort of a thing at that point, and that kind of gave the impression that Triceratops are gruff, and I think that's maybe where the idea came from.
oh him being like a gruff like boss like top of the ladder kind of character isn't it's specifically the fact that like Earl the dad is afraid his boss is going to eat him.
Like, in the literal sense, or in
Like
like the like he's
like in the literal sense, like in one of the episodes, when Robbie and the boss's daughter start having a thing for each other and like going out with each other or whatever, and you find out that the boss ate all of his daughter's boyfriends.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Then, yeah. I don't know. I guess
All of her.
maybe the joke is, yeah, it's supposed to be, oh, you're expecting he's a tricer. Yeah, I guess maybe it's supposed to subvert the idea of a plant eater. Maybe I don't. That's odd. That's an odd
I
choice.
just I would have made him a different dinosaur.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I don't
weird.
know, like necessarily. I would have necessarily felt like he had to be a T Rex because, yeah, you're right. That's a little on the nose, but like maybe like one of the bird, like the pterosaurus or whatever, like one of
Yeah.
the flying ones, like he's a bird of prey kind of
Oh,
joke,
yeah, yeah. Maybe. Yeah, yeah. That would have been like a
like
triceratops.
that
Not triceratops. A pterodactyl or
uh
whatever.
yeah, like a pterodactyl,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that I could believe eats meat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's odd that I didn't know that was the characteristic of him. But let's move on to your next thing. Otherwise, we're talking about
Uh,
dinosaurs all day.
um, So we're gonna move into movie territory here, and this is gonna be the last one of the ones that I've seen, and then I'm gonna move on to the one that I haven't seen, or at least I thought I hadn't seen it, um, but so I mean, I was gonna talk about Hook because that came out in '91 as well,
Yeah.
but I I can't talk about movies from '91 and not talk about a movie that's as old as time itself. A tale. Wait, how does the song go? A tale as old as time. Sorry, had to think about that. Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Um, which I mean, it is a gorgeous piece of animation.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, like just from a purely aesthetic like art medium, it is a
I
beautiful
mean,
piece of animation.
all of those Disney movies from that era, they still hold up. I mean, they're getting on in years, and they still hold up. They still look
Very
great.
well.
And the thing
Um,
is, the thing about that is it doesn't. It's not at that point where the animation and the story and the characters speak for themselves. You don't have to worry about, like, oh, here's the celebrity voice actor. We're not at that
Yeah,
era quite
no,
yet.
it's just kind of the story is the thing, and like
Yeah.
it does a very fantastic job of teaching. And you don't need people. You've seen Beauty and the
Yeah, I
Beast. You
don't need.
don't need me to do a plot by plot thing here, but I think it does a fantastic job of teaching the lesson that those who look like what society thinks is the correct thing aren't always the best thing, and those who are maybe not conventionally what society views as perfect
Yeah.
are maybe having an inner beauty or something about them that makes them worth getting to know.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
as a kid who grew up maybe feeling like he wasn't necessarily always comfortable in his own skin,
Hmm.
it that's one of the things that always made me kind of love this movie
That
is who could ever love a beast? Turns out maybe a very attractive, what is she, 21-year-old, I think, girl?
something like that. Yeah. But to be
She's one
fair,
of the
that's
older Disney
yeah.
princesses.
To be fair though, that's very much a lesson that era of Disney wanted to teach us, right? Of like, hey, maybe don't like maybe give something a second look or don't judge a thing because I mean that's very much the lesson in Aladdin. So it's the lesson in Little Mermaid that hey maybe things are multi-layered. Hunchback of Notre Dame. We were talking about
Yeah.
that. Like, hey,
I
maybe
mean,
people are multi-layered, you know?
I mean, it's interesting that you bring up the Hunchback of Notre Dame because to me that is actually an example of trying to do what Beauty and the Beast did of showing that a character that is maybe not physically attractive can have value. I think it does it worse than this.
Interesting. I mean, that's a topic for
That's a
another
whole other
time.
that's a whole other
Yeah.
debate. But my quick 2 second analysis of I'm just going to break it down of why is short and simple. Quasi is beautiful on the inside, but too ugly to get the girl.
Yeah, yeah.
Beast is so ugly that she never takes the time to even ask him his name, but still loves him.
Yeah, I thought you pointed that out when I saw you watching it, and that got me to thinking. Yeah, the live action one. I guess I'm gonna. Yeah, anyway, in the live action one, um, do they say his name in that version?
I don't think they do.
Of the questions that they answer, unnecessarily answer in that movie, do they say what his actual name is?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't think they do.
Because you're it's so funny that you say that. You're right. They never say what his name is. Like and there's stories or there's they've done um
Sure, there's
movies or
versions.
specials where you see him
Yeah,
as the human and it's like it bookends the special and they never say what his name is. I'm like
at least I don't think they ever have.
I want
I
to
mean,
say it's
maybe
Philip. I feel like it's Philip.
no. Philip is he's the one from Sleeping Beauty.
Is he?
Pretty sure.
Oh, I feel like it's a French name. It's like some French name. Cause
I
he,
mean, maybe, but I'm pretty sure Philip specifically. Pretty sure he's the one from Sleeping Beauty.
that's interesting. Um, yeah, but yeah,
But
no,
to be fair, I don't think they've ever. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm deep reaching here because I don't actually know. But I don't think they ever said the name of the prince from Snow White either.
no, he's very specifically just Prince Charming.
Yeah,
That was a thing in Once Upon a Time. That was a kind of a big deal that they revealed his name, which in that version is his name is James.
yeah.
I think
James Charming.
I think they did eventually give the Prince Charming one an actual name, or the one from Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast. I think in terms of like merchandise and shit, I think he does have a name. I just don't remember what it is.
Maybe I'd have to go and try and look
Because
that up.
otherwise, Prince Charming is just kind of a descriptor. It's not really a name.
Yeah.
Um,
um,
but
but
one of my favorite times my favorite version of the animated version of Beauty and the Beast to this day is remember when we saw, and I have the same feelings about the Lion King. I do remember years and years ago when we saw the IMAX version of it. We went downtown to where the
I think I think so.
it's where like Flyover Canada is now. It used to be an IMAX screen, and we watched Beauty and the Beast and it was incredible on IMAX. Like that's the thing I remember. It looks really good on IMAX.
I mean, it's a gorgeous film,
Yeah,
and
it really
the,
is.
the writing is. I mean, one could argue that she has Stockholm syndrome. That's a whole other
I'm,
video
I'm,
debate.
I'm not.
But
I'm not. There's been lots of people who pointed out that it is not. I am not. I'm not articulate enough to point out why that is the case. But there's lots of people who have been like, no, that she doesn't actually have Stockholm syndrome.
I mean, girl falls in love with her captor, but never bothers to ask his
Yeah,
name.
but
Is a strange turn of events. But
uh,
okay, okay,
I'll send.
we're
I'll
not gonna
send.
open that can of worms.
I'll send you the video. The video later. There's a video specifically that I saw where Lindsay Ellis, she has a video where she goes through and I was like, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, when you put it like that.
Joking aside, I think I've seen that video. But no, I'm gonna because it's fun. I'm gonna kick that hornet's nest until I die. Stockholm syndrome. But
I
uh,
thought about Stockholm syndrome too.
but no, to summarize, great movie, loved it.
Yeah, there's a
Not my
reason
favorite.
it's the reason it's
Not not
classic.
not not my favorite Disney movie though.
Oh, I mean that's always gonna be Aladdin. I mean,
Absolutely,
it's always gonna be.
absolutely,
I mean, yeah, it's always gonna be Aladdin. It's always Aladdin.
absolutely.
Aladdin is just like a plethora of childhood emotions of like I love that it's funny, it's charming, it's scary. Like I
I
remember,
love Robin
yeah.
Williams.
I mean, my one of my earliest memories is going to see the Aladdin version of Disney on Ice, and that was kind of the moment I realized that theme park versions of the movie are never going to be as scary. And I remember being like prepared for when the snake shows up, and it being a really lame like costume and effect on ice, and just that immediately like no, I wasn't scared anymore because I was like, yeah, that was kind of lame. And I remember being like, I want young. It was young.
I mean, I
We had the
remember when we went
merchandise
to
from that for like ever. We had like cups or
um
something.
I remember when we went to Disneyland and we got to see them do the stage production version of Aladdin,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how that was a blast, and the genie, and yeah, no, that was that. I have a lot of fond memories
What's
when it
it's
comes to
funny
Aladdin.
is I've seen a um uh bootleg of um
The
Bro-
stage play.
the Broadway musical, and
Oh yeah.
it is terrible. it's
Oh,
yeah, it's really
that's a strong word.
yeah, it's really pantomimey. It's like like you know what a pantomime is, right? We
Like
went we,
a mime.
no, like remember we went to see that
Oh, silly.
silly, yeah, but it's a pantomime is a particular genre of. Okay, remember we went to White Rock once. Mom got us tickets to go watch Alice in
Yeah.
Wonderland. That Alice in Wonderland. That's a pantomime where it's like it breaks the fourth wall. It's really silly. It's not very like it's really
Okay.
jokey and it like it a lot of the comedic and it's one of those like all the worst qualities of the
Blustery.
yeah, and it's like they're just saying the lines from the movies, but like it's like jokey and it's not you know like a bet the it's sort of like remember when we went to see Aladdin and the Oasis.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, basically.
Over the top.
Kind of, yeah. And the only interesting thing about it is they introduce um there's he's got four friend characters who are like his
Mm.
best friends, and one of them's called Kasim, named after the dad. And they and they keep the mom character. So he sings Proud of Your Boy, and then
Oh, I like that.
um
High adventure.
they sing High Adventure, yeah.
Now
And
you've. I think I've seen that clip before.
yeah, I've never been able to find it again, but it's actually cool. It's actually pretty cool the way they sing, and yeah, they're kind of fun characters, but they're the reason it's kind of pantomime, and it just wasn't. It was like like I would not pay $100 for this. I paid $30 for this in a matinee. Like it was like for the amount of money you'd have to pay. It just wasn't. But to be fair, the only one of those that like the Beauty and the Beast one didn't look very good either. The only one that looked good because it was taking an ounce of like chances creatively was the Lion King one, and that's because it's made by Julie Taymor, and she made Across the Universe, and she just likes her shit weird. Like that's just her thing. Like
She's out there.
yeah, she's the one who also made the Spider-Man musical. If you've heard anything
Oh
about
yeah.
that, yeah. So yeah, she's
I
weird.
think you've shown me stuff from that
Oof,
before.
yeah, that was bad. For a while there was a really good bootleg that was floating around that I almost bought because I wanted to actually see a full version of it. I almost bought it at a convention once. I was like so close. I think I ended up buying a Common Rider thing instead. And a part of me is disappointed because I didn't end up watching it because it was a badly formatted version of the show and the subtitles were really like obnoxious and hard to read. And yeah,
Uh, that sucks.
yeah, it was like, ended up being a waste of my money. Um, anyway, so yeah, moving on from Beauty and the Beast, let's move into I guess
From
that's
moving on from things that I've seen, we're gonna move on into a thing that I thought I hadn't seen, but then you informed me that I had seen, but I don't remember having previously seen.
yeah.
So we're gonna move on along with this as if I hadn't seen this. Um, but so I have to ask you, Justin, what about Bob?
What about Bob?
Uh, um, so a good movie, Bill Murray, movie, a movie where uh, so quick summary of it. Annoying guy gets dumped by his therapist and transferred over to the other therapist. Therapist meets with him once, does like a preliminary interview and all that, and is like, you know, baby steps, go do this, blah blah blah, and is like, I'll see you in a month. Me and my family are gonna go on vacation, and then Bob psychotically is incapable of being apart from his therapist for any amount of time, and so because this is the 90s, phones the people that like can get you in contact with your therapist, I guess, because that was a thing back then when they're on vacation, and it's like it's an emergency, and his therapist is all like, don't call me again, Bob. This is extremely weird and unprofessional. Um, and so then Bob is all like, "Oh, that was a dumb thing. That was a dumb thing," and then gets a prostitute slash hooker to phone the same people and pretend to be the doctor's sister and pretend it's an emergency so that he'll pick up the phone again. And then or maybe that was the first time. Either way, when that happens, the doctor is like, "That's like, no, you can't do this. Like, not okay." And then Bob then goes to the phone place and it pretends to be a detective to convince these ladies that had been answering the call that he committed suicide so that he could get the address of his new therapist's vacation home so that he could go and have a in-person consultation. But he's all like don't worry, like don't tell him. I'm gonna like I'll send him a letter and let him know. And of course, these individuals, being the responsible individuals they are, um, phone up the therapist and are like, "Yeah, your patient Bob killed himself." And it's the middle of the night, so of course the therapist is like, "Oh, okay, thanks for telling me." And his wife is all like, what happened? And he's like, well, apparently Bob committed suicide. Not let it ruin our vacation. Also, he's been selling. He's like gotten really famous and is selling a bunch of books and is about to be on Good Morning America. Um, and so he's like, let's not let it ruin our vacation. So then Bob, who in the beginning wasn't able to get on an elevator without panicking because he's afraid of like everything, um, manages to get on a bus and drive up to this place to go find the therapist. So he's in the middle of that town after getting off the bus, and the entire time, and his entire thing is like, if he fakes a thing, then he can't have the disease. So
Right.
like at a certain point, he in the office, he goes like into this bag, and he's like, false alarm, like I'm okay, or he's like, if I have a cardiac arrest, no, no, it's not happening. We're all good. It's good. And I'm watching this and finding him to be irritating, so I can certainly see where the therapist later ends up coming from. Um, so he shows up in town, and meanwhile, coincidentally, the therapist and his family were at the store and walk out, and so Bob is in the middle of town going, Doctor blah blah blah, blah Doctor, like calling for him, and the doctor's all like, get in the car, get in the car, get in the car, like don't let him see it, get in the car kind of thing. And then he sees him and he's like, oh, you're the doctor, and you're his wife, such and such, and you're the daughter, and you're the son, and 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 like they're all like, oh, hi and stuff, and the doctor's like, okay, go to this cafe. I'll call you at 4 o'clock. We can have an on-call interview, and then you get on the bus and go home, right? And he's all like, all right, baby steps, baby stepping to town, and he goes to the he goes to this cafe, and he starts like he's waiting there or whatever. Someone goes to answer the phone or goes to use the payphone there because kids. Back before cell phones were a common occurrence, we had these things called payphones where you would put a quarter in,
Yeah.
and you would then be able to phone. Uh, and so someone goes to use it, and he's like, "No, you can't use it. I'm waiting for a phone call at 4." And the owner, this older lady and her husband are like basically, "Who are you? Who's blah blah blah?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm waiting for a call from the doctor." And they're like, "Oh, the doctor that bought such and such house." And he's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, we wanted to buy that house, but he like bought it out from under us." And they're like, we'll take you there maliciously because they hate the doctor. And so he shows up at the house, and the doctor's all like this is extremely inappropriate. And then he comes in and he introduces himself to the family. And I'm gonna rapid fire through this part. Over the course of the movie, he ingratiates himself with the different family members, goes boating with the daughter and her friends as he's tied to the mast of the boat, and he's like, oh, because he's terrified of everything. Remember,
Yeah.
helps the son who was afraid to dive into the water and go under the water. With the dad, he teaches or he helps the son do that, and so then the dad comes running out of the house and he's like, "Don't worry, don't worry. Like I got it now, Bob. I got it now." Bob pushes Bob into the water, and like is like with the son, and they're all like unhappy with him. And over the course of the movie, Bob continues to be annoying, and he's slowly driving the doctor insane. And so then there's a scene where he's like, it's after the Good Morning America stuff, and Bob has wormed his way onto the interview, and like made it look like the doctor has blown it and has like made a fool of himself on air, and Bob has been like really good. And so now every time someone sees Bob in the movie, they're like, "Hey, I saw you on TV." And like you did a really good job, and blah blah blah. And the doctor is getting more and more worked up about it all. And so he's like, "All right, Bob, like we're gonna go for a little drive." And as I'm watching this, I'm like, "We're gonna go for a little drive, and I'm going to murder
I'm
you,
going to go.
and
I'm going to go drop you off in the woods.
I'm gonna go make you disappear." So he drops him off at the mental institute, and Bob somehow doesn't come off as crazy there, but instead has everyone loving him. And the doctor that our doctor tries to commit him to gives the doctor back the application or whatever, the submission to put him into the crazy house. And he's like, "I'm just gonna give this back to you so you don't look like a fool for all this, like you can save face." And he's like, "What are you talking about? How can you not see that the man is like crazy?" And like goes full crazy. And so he's driving back to the home, and then Bob keeps talking and yammering on and is driving him more and more crazy. Drops him off in the middle of the forest, zooms off, then breaks into the store of the older people that hate him, gets a bunch of fireworks and explosive and stuff, and tries to blow Bob up. And Bob's like, "Oh, I get it. Like this is me," and he's talking to himself because the doctor's driven off and is like crazy, like, "Goodbye." And Bob is all like, "Oh, I get it. This is about me and like how my internal stuff, like all my wires are crossed, and like I need to like deal with my problems before I explode like a bomb." And then somehow manages to escape, like to get out of to being tied up and stuff. Goes back to the house, and the doctor is all there, and the family's there and stuff, and is like, Bob, like, what are you doing here? And then the doctor's like, where did you put the bags that I put around you? And Bob's like, in the house. And of course, when the house explodes, and then it cuts, and like the doctor's in a straitjacket in the insane asylum, and Bob has literally driven him crazy.
That's funny.
And then like it does this like little cut montage thing where he's like, well, at least nothing worse, or no, like nothing bad, nothing worse can happen. And then it cuts, and the doctor's wife's sister is marrying Bob. And it's like, and the doctor has been like comatose for like basically like in a straitjacket, like comatose for a while. And the priest is like, if anyone has any problems, say your piece, kind of thing. And the doctor is doesn't say anything. Priest is like, and now I pronounce you husband and wife, and he's like, no. And then they're all like, "Oh, honey, you're okay. You've come back to us! Yay!"
Just real quick. Sorry, not to cut you off. Just a technical thing. What do you have your gain set at?
Uh, I don't know. Do you need me to turn it down?
Well, you just you keep peaking, and in my ears it keeps cutting you off, and I'm not sure if
How's
that's just
that?
that's better. It's just when you yell. When you yell and you get really passionate,
Uh,
I didn't want to interrupt you, but every time it cuts out and I can't hear you. I can hear you because you're in the other room, but I can't hear you, and I don't know if that's just Discord or if that's affected on the stream. Um,
it could be because my gain is too high. I've turned it down a bit.
oh yeah, okay. You basically you want it like pretty like as close to like low as you possibly can.
The issue is that it's on the opposite. I really wish that it was on the same side as the volume one,
I don't know.
because it's like it's on the opposite side of the mouth of the mic. So without moving my setup,
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
kind of am just blindly turning it down.
Because yeah, you keep when you yell, and it's like it's funny shit, but it just keeps peaking the mic, and I don't know if people can hear you, so I don't want to ruin your joke, but I also don't want your joke to get ruined by the fact that people can't hear you. So I'm waiting for my
That's
moment to be like, I need to tell him he's peaking his mic. How do I do this?
that's because I'm getting too excited.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry,
but
sorry. Go on.
that was
Finish your
that's
summary.
that no, that was pretty much done. Doctor had a full mental breakdown because of Bob. And as I'm watching it, I'm with my 2024. I watched it. It was 2024. Um, Still getting used to this whole New Year
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Fair enough.
Um, as I was watching it, I with my 2024 sensibilities, I was like, with modern doctors, I mean, he probably would have been diagnosed as autistic.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Bob,
definitely.
I
I remember
mean,
that. I remember that from when I watched it. Well, I was just listening to you talk about it. It's one of those movies where it reminds me in a lot of ways of a movie you've never seen. It was called something Network. Network, I think, is what it was just called. But it was about the 24-hour news cycle. And this movie very
oh
much
yeah,
seems to have something to say about parasocial relationships and seeing a relationship there where there is none. And it reminds me of people's like there's a fan of a social media influencer that would do that kind of level of crazy, right?
yeah,
Where it's like,
yeah.
yeah, like people do that and think that's okay nowadays. Like this movie tells us well in advance that having a parasocial relationship, it cannot be healthy. And I can't remember. Does it ends with like him having like firmly weaseled his way in, right? They're like he's friends with the
Oh, he
family now.
married. He married. Yeah, he's friends with the family, and he marries the wife's sister.
Oh, he does actually marry her. I thought that was a fantasy
Yeah.
thing. Oh,
I
interesting.
mean, it doesn't. I don't think it's a fantasy. As far as I could tell, it's what actually happened.
Oh, interesting. I don't
Like
remember.
he went crazy, and he's in the straitjacket. And the thing that brings him out of being full blown comatose crazy is the fact that Bob is now part of the family. He's an
Oh,
in-law.
oh, yes. Yeah. This what's funny is I know I've seen this movie. I know we watched it together, but beyond the title and the joke, I've been like, what about Bob?
What
I
about Bob?
and Richard Dreyfuss is in it and Bill Murray's in it. That's
Yeah,
kind of all I remember. It's just like I don't remember much about it other than that.
good
But
movie.
I
Very
remember it
very
being funny.
enjoyable.
I mean, I'm always a fan. I like Bill Murray. There isn't really that era of Bill Murray. There's a lot of movies I liked of his. There's a really fun one he did called that we watched a ton that I don't know if you remember, but it was called Larger Than Life, and it was the one where he gets the elephant.
I don't specifically
Oh, I don't
remember
remember the
that
one.
one.
Yeah, there's one where his dad, he's like estranged from his dad, and he's like a salesman or something. I can't remember what his deal was, but his dad leaves him an elephant, and he has to get the. It's one of those like animal best friend movies where he has to get the elephant across the country or whatever, and the animal is it's an elephant, but he's like a slightly smarter than average elephant for
Oh yeah.
yeah, one of those. It's quite a good movie. I remember it
Um,
being quite good.
I will say though, as much as I did enjoy it, I do find it slightly exasperating that the wife because like she keeps being like, "Oh, he's harmless. Like there's no danger there." The fact that like okay, so this mentally unwell man who had to go and get therapy um not only lies to the phone operators to get the number of the doctor,
Yeah, that's
but then
sicko
pretends
shit.
to commit suicide to show up in town and stalk the family,
Yeah.
and she sees absolutely no red flags in that
I
at
mean,
all.
it's just also like at this point, a lot of what happens in that movie, he can no longer be. He needs a new therapist now, right? Like he can't
Oh,
be his
absolutely.
therapist. It would be unethical of him to be his therapist now.
I mean, after trying to murder the man, certainly,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And fun movie,
Um,
fun movie. Um,
but yeah, generally, yeah, fun movie.
do you have any final thoughts before we move on to?
I mean, the only final thought that I have is there was one other incredibly awesome thing that came out of 91, and that was me.
I didn't come out in 1991 because moving on
Was
and
was
transitioning to,
almost
we're gonna
almost
actually
92,
we're gonna
but you know,
actually move a
they
year.
saved the best. They saved the best for
It's
last.
true. It's true. Mom waited till the end of 1991 to drop her greatest hit.
Oh yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
second greatest hit because in 1990, um, um, they dropped this guy. So
Right. But see, they had to do it a second time to get it right.
that is true. That is true. But so 1990 is my year.
Sorry. So I'm joking.
We're moving back in time a year to talk about 1990. And we're going to be doing my book report in two parts. We're going to be doing it the stuff I haven't seen and the stuff I have seen. And the theme of the stuff I have seen is stuff from our childhood. And we're gonna do three, and we're gonna do them in a row. We're not gonna do them rapid fire, but anyway. So the first one we're gonna talk about um, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first movie. That came out in
Yeah.
1990. I rewatched that the other night, and man, it's the best turtle movie, man. It really is. It strikes that balance of being a little dark, a little bit of edge, a little bit of like they're like one of the first lines the turtle a turtle has, and this was it was taken from the show, right? The show, they adapted it from the show, so it takes stuff from the show and it takes stuff from the comic. But the first line from a turtle in that movie is "damn," like it's a curse word, and like I remember as a kid being like, they said swear, and it wasn't quite, for whatever reason, despite the fact that the second one is more kid friendly. I'm not gonna summarize it. You've seen Turtles. I don't need to summarize it for you. But to me, it's less scary than the second one. Super Shredder was way scarier than anything in the first one. Also, a thing I really noticed this time around: Shredder, not a terribly physically intimidating guy.
No, you don't think so?
No, he's a tiny, scrawny little man. I didn't find him. He plays the character big, but like when I'm seeing him up against the turtles, he's roughly the same size as the turtles. Like he's not. I didn't find him to be physically intimidating this time around.
I mean, what isn't wasn't the point that he's like uh AKA or Arete Media says AKA the best Turtles
It
movie.
is the best turtles movie.
Um
Yeah, that's my point.
isn't the point of him though that part of what's supposed to make him so intimidating is um A, he's like a kung fu master, and B, he has like an almost unlimited amount of soldiers that will do anything. He's a cult leader.
Kind of, sort of, not. I mean, in the cartoons, yes. In this case, the ninjas are all kids who a lot are who have passed like the whole thing is like he brings in street kids and he gives them, it's like a Pinocchio style. He gives them whatever they want, and then when he sticks
Right.
with them
Cult.
enough time,
Cult.
right, and then they become ninjas. But no, they don't start off as ninjas, and it's like they're kind of, yeah. He has the numbers, but that the turtles and Casey Jones beat the ninjas easily with like minimal difficulty. So like, and once they're together, like when they get Raphael on his own and like they're like it's like 5-on-1, then yeah. But when it's the four of them, five of them with Casey Jones, no, they're not really that tough. And he himself, he's not. He gets pretty easily beaten. It's like he gets beaten by Splinter, who's not the most mobile creature on the planet, and he just does a little nunchuck and he throws him off the edge, and then Casey Jones is like, "Whoops, I just did a murder." Um, like literally, he falls into the thing, and then it's supposed to be this kind of funny moment where Casey Jones is like, "Whoops!" and he hits the trash compactor. But I mean, that's a brutal way to murder someone. Like he crushes him. I mean, he
Yeah.
comes back in the next one. He's not actually dead, but still, it's a pretty brutal way to kill somebody. I mean, to be fair, in the original, he gets decapitated in that scene. What's funny is that movie. It is and the 2003 show. It takes a lot from that original run of comics, where it's like, yeah, uh, um, April O'Neil owns a antique shop that she lives above, and yeah, they wind up on the farm and all that sort of stuff. Like that's a lot of carryover from previous versions of the original versions. And
Um,
just
Arete,
generally, sorry.
Arete Media says, yeah, but that foot initiation scene is badass.
I mean, it is badass, but especially towards the end, it's just yeah, he's not doing anything in sort of a in terms of fighting that the turtles do more impressive fighting things. Like, and I think that the guy who works for him, um, I forget what his name is, but the Asian guy who slaps the kid, I think he's more intimidating than Shredder is. Like I don't, I think the costume looks kind of lazy and cheap. It's not the best version of Shredder in my opinion. It's just in terms of just looks and like, I mean maybe I'm biased. Maybe I just love the original so much, but he wasn't really all that scary to me. And there's a lot of real good stunt work in this. Like the turtles, the guys doing the turtles, like it's incredible. Like it's so tactile and good.
I mean, yeah, especially when you think about the fact that they're doing a lot of that stuff in Tatsu. Arete Media says Tatsu.
Yeah, he's way more intimidating to me than
Um,
Shredder is.
no, the stunts are definitely impressive, especially when you think about the fact that they're doing it in big rubber suits.
They're blind. Like yeah, like they're just not even that they're doing these rubber suits. Yes, but they can't see shit in those masks. Like a lot of the stunt work was done basically blind.
Less is more, young grasshopper, Arete Media says.
Yeah, I mean, I get the minimalism of it because it was taken from the comics, and in the comics he's a very minimalist like the thing about the original comics is it's not as over the top as Turtles kind of has become and was in the 80s, and that this movie it's why I think it's the best one. It doesn't go over the top with it. Yeah, there's a lot of funny yeah, they're doing catchphrases, but they're simple and they're fun. Like they're not
Yeah.
it's not like all cowabunga. Like they get a cowabunga, but it feels really earned, and it's a funny joke because like they keep trying to like nail a catchphrase. Like there's a really funny bit at the beginning where they're just saying catchphrases to each other, and Donatello's like bossa nova, and they're all like bossa nova. That and also Donatello is not a character in this movie, which is weird. I always thought that it came before for whatever reason in my brain, it came before the cartoon, and the cartoon is very much like Donatello does machines, whereas in this, Donatello is just kind of Michelangelo. Like him and Michelangelo are kind of the same character. Like they're not really. It's not really until later ones that he kind of becomes the tech guy, and this one he's kind of just a purple Michelangelo.
I mean, that's fair, but Arete Media says off topic. I would argue this is not exactly off topic, but have you seen Batman versus TMNT?
Yes, that movie's
Yes,
solid. That movie's
I
that movie's
really
really
really like
good.
that one.
That that kind of gave me the idea of like I kind of want to see turtle like a series of movies that's the turtles crossing over with, and I really liked how it felt believable that they could exist in the same world. Like that movie really made it. Apparently, there's a sequel comic that's quite good that they should adapt into a movie as well.
I really like that in that I saw the movie, and I really like in that one that they feel like teenagers.
Yeah, that was kind of the when it's funny when people were talking about Mutant Mayhem. Wait, have you seen Mutant Mayhem yet, Jordan?
No, not
No,
yet.
no.
I was gonna watch that one on the plane.
Oh, okay. that one that was really funny to me that they were like, oh, it's the first time that the turtles get to be teenagers, and I'm like, Batman versus Turtles, they're very much teenagers.
Absolutely.
Like that's the thing with the turtle, and that's a big thing going back to the movie, where it's like, yeah, they don't feel like teenagers. They feel like
Uh,
guys in their 20s always.
yeah, yeah.
But that one's quite
Rete
good.
says, world's greatest fan fiction. Lol.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, the turtles have done a run of good, cool crossovers in the comics. Like there's
I mean,
there's
they've crossed over with Power Rangers
yeah,
too. If you
apparently
want to
that's
talk about,
also quite good. I
do
would
you want to
like for
talk
them.
about things that are weird?
I really I mean, this
I
is
mean,
off topic.
They did it in the show too. They did it in
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
space
yeah, yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah. They did do it in the show. Yeah,
I think it was
that's fun.
this version of them. I think.
No, it's the next mutation version
Oh,
because
okay.
they were both
The
made by
TV one.
yeah the TV one because they were both made by Saban. That's why, and it was
Right,
they
right,
were
right.
trying to use Power Rangers to promote Turtles. That show. That's why that crossover exists because they were both made by the same company. But
That makes sense.
this is off topic, but um, the power. I always felt like I mean, I know that they want to do live action stuff with Power Rangers, but I always felt like they should do an animated adaptation of the comics, and and
Yes, and then do the one because I think wasn't there one where no, I'm thinking of Looney Tunes where it crosses over with Flintstones.
Power Rangers.
It was
I
yeah.
don't think so.
I was being a facetious smartass,
They've
but
done some weird like they did a my favorite crossover they've done for Jake is they did a crossover with Godzilla in the comics, and that was one of those like I can't believe they haven't thought of this before.
yeah, I remember seeing a panel from that where it's the Dragon Zord versus Godzilla, and it
Yeah,
looks dope.
I mean
Uh,
there's some cool like there's a point where Lord Zed becomes an evil Power Ranger and Rita becomes and that the comics are really cool, and I'd like to see them
uh,
adapt into something.
Arete says, "I just mean that movie has no business being as good as it is."
Absolutely, he's right. Yeah, I watched it. I went
Yeah,
into it with the anticipation because I saw the clips of Joker as like a snake person, and I thought it was going to be awful. And I watched it. I was like, I went through. It was a period where was catching up on the DC animated stuff, and that was when I popped in. I was like, yeah, I was impressed. I was like, because I think at that point I was pretty like Turtles out. I didn't really care for Rise, and I didn't like the 2012 version. I was kind of like, oh, am I done with Turtles? And it was like, oh no, I just hate those versions of the Turtles. It's fine.
he says, "Bro, yes, they need an animated for the Lord Drakenarch." I feel like there's another word there, but the heart on my thing is the heart emoji is covering up part of it.
Oh,
Um, and I don't know how to make that go away. But point being, yes, they should absolutely make an animated one for the Lord Drakenarch because you can't get Jason David Franks to come back
yeah.
anymore and do it.
There's a really cool short movie video whatever of they did as a
Him
trailer for
being
it of him as
yeah,
him, and it's really dope. It's really
like
badass.
he's in the suit and it looks dope and it's
Yeah,
like yeah,
yeah. There's like
yeah, no, I absolutely would love to see an
there's
animated version
what's
of that.
interesting is there's multiple. It's weird because like in the comics they've adapted the major storylines from the show, but like different and darker. So like currently there's a new Green Ranger, and
Isn't it his daughter?
I think so. But there's a Green Ranger where it's like they're wearing the new version of the Dragon Ranger armor, where it's like it's got the gold tint and stuff, and it looks badass. And it's like yeah, there's a lot of cool shit. Especially yeah, there's the pink Lord Draken, also the Ranger Hunter. I would love to see the Ranger Hunter, but yeah, that's one of those ones where it's like you could totally spend
Good
the
to know.
money and do an animated series on Netflix, especially since Netflix is giving them money to do bad specials anyway.
I
Um,
mean, yeah. Arete says, if you ever want to talk Power Rangers, invite Nick from the Goosebumps crew.
Good to know. Good to know. It's good to know.
That is
Um,
very good to know.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I've had an idea of a musical episode for this that I've been holding off on because I know that obviously we there's a musical podcast on the network, and maybe the person who runs that podcast may want to collaborate on something. I don't know. We're still in the new year, so we're still, you know,
Oh, there is lots of time to get into all the crossover episodes with everyone and do like all sorts of
exactly.
things.
Yeah, yeah. The Goosebumps crew as well. It's
Halloween. We'll have a Halloween episode. We could have them on and talk about
yeah, yeah,
Goosebumps.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I could talk about Goosebumps for hours, but
Slappy.
Slappy, yeah. But anyway, keeping on topic, we're gonna move on to my second one, which is
I mean, I have a
um,
dummy.
yeah, we're gonna move on to my second movie, which is the and I didn't know, I think I knew that this was a theatrical release, but I because I never saw it theatrically, I sort of wouldn't remember it being, but the DuckTales movie. I watched the DuckTales movie.
Oh yeah.
And man, it's so funny. And my third one is we're gonna tie back to the Ducktales because
Real
they're kind of
quick.
a
Arete says, "Oh yeah, Haley's down."
yeah. We have I have some ideas for musical episode that I wanna get this one to watch some ancient ass musicals. We want to talk about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and. But
Oh yes.
we'll work on that. But no, we're gonna talk about
Neil
Ducktales.
Bamboo.
We're gonna talk about DuckTales the movie, the Magic Lamp, and just man, it's sort of the last of an era when it comes to like doing the movie version. It's not really because I remembered that like the Teacher's Pet movie had come out, but where you basically just do a bigger, longer version episode of the show where it's like, oh, this is like because it's not a very long movie. It's only an hour and 15. And it's like, yeah, I mean, this one does have, it's funny when people are like, well, I said that the genie is kind of the start of celebrity stunt casting, but there's some celebrity stunt casting in this movie. Like, there's Christopher Lloyd is the bad guy.
Yep.
And, you've got Rip
He's
Taylor.
the big one.
Rip Taylor is the genie. It was driving me crazy. I was like, why do I recognize the genie? And I was like, oh, it's Rip Taylor. We constantly, it's funny, this is a movie we constantly joke a catchphrase whenever the genie grants wishes, he's like
Yep.
yeah, we still quote it, and it's just a fun.
That peaked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the same thing happened to me, so maybe let's not do that again. But no, it's fun. It's also that era where kids bad guys can be scary. Like that's a thing that I've discovered nowadays. Where in kids movies where we're not doing them with the possible maybe the exception of death from from
Puss in Boots.
But bad guys aren't scary anymore. They're not. But also it's
not
funny.
in the same way. But we also in a lot of modern movies, I find they really want to step away from the like you have a specific like Maleficent kind of villain and more society is the problem or like personal issues are the problem. It's like a more of a grander scheme thing.
What's interesting, what's weird about that movie is it does undercut itself a little bit because they spend a great amount of time being like Murloc is super scary and they present him as being super scary, but then there's these scenes where it's like he's a mouse and he's getting shooed around by the maid and it's like he's really silly and goofy and it's like it's really undercutting the tension of him being a scary evil bad guy.
But I mean, I think part of why they do that in this movie is because it's such a short movie. It then makes it so that when he does get the lamp and he has the thing and he has his floating castle in the sky, it makes him seem that much scarier because in the rest of it he was so silly.
I mean, yeah, this
and
movie,
you kind of.
That's another thing I appreciate about it. It's like, oh yeah, like we've hit this weird spot where like even kids movies have to be 2 hours long, and it's like this is a nice tight hour and like 20 minutes. There's no fat on it. It doesn't waste a second.
It just gets right
to the point, right to it. And it doesn't need any more time. Like this is one of those times where, like this movie's
really.
kind of it doesn't need any more backstory for the genie.
I mean, what else would you add to it? Like, would you have like a prequel scene where it's like, oh, 10,000 years ago, and this was him with the previous master, and this is how he lost the power? Unnecessary.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. And the genie. I always love a genie who understands responsibility, and it's like the magic seems to be independent of him. Like he's just kind of a conduit for it.
Yeah, and he's like, no, you don't want that. Trust me, been there. Bad choice.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that it's like this movie stands for itself. You know what I mean? It's not. It's not trying. The movie is selling itself based on the movie. It's not, again, Christopher Lloyd isn't the selling point. He's the bad guy, sure, but he's not the selling point. Rip Taylor, you're not selling this movie based on Rip Taylor. It's a DuckTales movie, and it's like I didn't realize that this came out during the show. It comes out. Apparently it takes place between the second and third, or either the second and third or the third and fourth, but it takes place during the show.
Huh,
Yeah,
didn't know that.
and I kind of would like to see, like, unrelated, but kind of related. It really got me thinking about, man, I would love them to do. I know they did a finale, but I'd really like them to do a big movie version of the new show. Like, I'd love to see that show get a real budget and do one of these, like, it's the movie, it's a movie version of the, like, I know I said when it came to Rick and Morty, I was like, oh, don't just do a big expensive version of the show. But, like, I sort of realized this week that I kind of appreciate that every once in a while.
See, what I would do if they were to do that, and I don't know exactly what we would have. You and I would have to sit down and write the plot for this movie. But what I would want it to be is some sort of thing which brings all of the Saturday morning, afternoon cartoon,
That'd be kind of fun.
like the Disney morning ones, afternoon, whatever,
Yeah.
all of them together.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, fine. I mean,
So
that's
like
that's kind of what they were building
Chip
to,
and
anyways, on that show.
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Baloo, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, all of them.
Well, I mean, they did sort of indicate that a version of the Saturday morning exists in that universe. Like Goofy, there's the episode with the genie, where they which is implied to be the same genie from the original movie. Um,
Mm.
did you not? You've seen the whole show. You've seen that
I've seen that.
and then yeah, then they brings in Goofy because it needs a celebrity.
And you're
Goofy,
like the
Goofy,
entire time you're like, is Goofy real?
yeah.
And he ends up being
He
real.
ends up being real in the end, yeah. And then there's the episode where they bring in the Rescue
Rescue
Rangers,
Rangers, I
and then
remember.
there's the episode where it's a sequel. It's a sequel to Tailspin because it's the kid from Tailspin,
Yep.
but he's now an adult.
And
Um,
they bring back Jim Cummings, and he is the Negaduck now.
yes, and they brought back there's the Darkwing Duck, and yeah, bring them all together to fight a. And my go to. I know everyone says multiverse stuff is lazy now, but I just find a way to bring all the old school Disney afternoon people back. And to fight a big thing or something. I don't know. Something. I would love to see that show get a big budget, like, revival for one last time.
Yeah, well, the reason why for me in this
At least they
instance
got a series finale,
specifically,
but still.
the reason, yes, you're right. But the reason why for me in this instance, why I specifically go to the versal thing is because the question for me with an animated movie or version of a thing, is always you have to do something that you couldn't just do on the show.
Yes,
So for this, it would be to have a big budget version, have all these characters, all these
absolutely.
actors come back. That's where the money's going to.
And
You're
also,
paying all of these people.
I mean, another fun version would be, and they can't do it now, but they could have. I think he was alive. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't alive when they were doing the reboot. But it would be fun to do a thing where it's old Scrooge and new Scrooge team up.
No, that would have been fun, but
So
I think he's passed away.
he's definitely passed away. But I mean, you could
Yeah.
probably find a halfway decent voice man. I mean, if you were going to do it today, which I don't think you should, without Alan Young, you shouldn't do it. But to
No.
have it where I get a decent voice, because that's the one thing is Alan Young and David Tennant's version are so different. There's like having watched this,
Unless
they're entirely different characters.
what you could do if you wanted to do something like that is you have instead of it being the Disney afternoon characters or whatever, it's a multiversal thing where it's like a bunch of different versions of Scrooge and the family, and you have like, for example, and I'm just pulling a number here, like 10 different versions of Scrooge, all voiced by different
I mean,
people.
I don't need that many.
Um,
I'd be cool with the
and then
originals and the newest
that's
team,
where I
teaming up.
just said I just pulled a number five, let's
Yeah.
say. And then like you have a final scene where you see the original Scrooge, and he doesn't talk.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, you could have a thing where it's Scrooge and the new guys. I mean, because the other unfortunate thing is Russi Taylor. I think it was Russi Taylor. The voice who did the original Huey, Dewey, and Louie. She also passed away. She was in the first season where she played Kid Donald.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
but it would be kind of fun to have her versions of Huey because they very much are the same, just exactly the same character. They're all exactly the same character.
Yeah.
They don't really have much personality, so it would be kind of fun to have it where like maybe the new versions get pulled into the old universe and do like a almost like a variation of the
Back
chipmunks.
back Back to Alvin's Past.
Yes. Yeah, do that.
I think is
That
what
was
it's
so
call.
confusing. That special still confuses me. Where it's like, why did
I
they
love
look
that
different?
special.
It's a good special, but that would have been kind of fun. But I think the boat's kind of sailed on that because yeah, all the voice cast is no longer with us. But I always thought that would be
Yeah.
fun.
To me,
So
the only way that you could do that now is, yeah, if, again, you have them show up, but they don't talk.
yeah. I mean, you can just
Like
have it
it's a
where.
visual, like you've got 10. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say you could just have it where they just go to their universe and then they show up
Oh,
at
I've
the end.
lost you.
You lost me.
Oh, you're gone.
I'm gone. Can you still hear me?
Oh, now I hear you, but I don't see you, and I don't know. I think the stream is still going.
Okay.
Oh, you've popped back on for me.
Weird. We're having Discord issues.
Um, no, yeah, well, what were we talking about?
Oh, they could do it where they go to their universe and then at the end you see them but they don't talk.
Yeah. That to me is the one way that you can have the original style is have it be where it's like, yeah, or like they get brought into the universe and it's like they can't interfere with it or something, and
Yeah.
somebody keeps trying to interfere with it, and they have to like stop the people from interfering, and
Mhm.
so they can't talk to themselves,
Yeah.
and that way you can have the visual but not have to have the audio.
I mean, another thing you could also do is you could yeah, you could have it where they keep running into them and like use archive footage of the original show and you can and archive recordings and recreate the voices using archive audio and then just have it where yeah they just see them at the end and have it where they get teleported into their universe. That way you can replicate the style of the original show and have characters from the original show come back and like do voice matching as much as possible. You could, it's a thing you could do in modern day and that would be kind of fun. um but so we're gonna move on, and it will tie back because I want to talk about the final my final one that I had seen um from our childhood, which is the Jetsons movie. Jetsons movie came out in
Yes.
1990, which
Did it really?
it did. I did the same. The Jetson movie, going back to it, was an unbelievably incredible experience because this movie is truly incredible in that it is like the last of its kind. Okay, came out in 1990, which I swear to God, it was much older than that. I
I would
thought
have I would have guessed like at the earliest like 85 or
I
86.
absolutely would agree with you on that because basically having watched it, did you see that clip? We talked about it where I was like that clip I posted. You saw it, but you had no idea where it was from. You want to take a crack at
Yeah.
where it was from now?
Well, now I'm gonna guess it was the Jetson
It
movie.
absolutely from the Jetsons movie. Yeah, would you have guessed that? No,
No, I wouldn't
completely
have.
fucking wild, right?
I forgot that there was that scene where Judy and the dude start singing.
Yeah, in the
Right.
mall, in the mall. We're gonna get to that. So
Right. Oh, I forgot about that.
this was funny is if I let it go for a second later, you would have seen Judy Jetson in it.
Yeah.
But this movie's incredible, like in the sense that yeah, I would have guessed 87, 80, like and there's a reason why because it was made largely in the 80s, right? It's an animated movie. It's the 90s. Animation takes an eternity at that point,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
this was made, but okay. So to start off with, it was directed by Hanna-Barbera, like the guys, Hanna and
Wow.
Barbera. It was the last movie they directed before they died. Yeah,
Wow.
and okay, the jet. I read into this because I was so fascinated. I saw it come up. Mel Blanc is in this movie. Came out in 1990. I was like, wasn't
Who does he
he?
play?
He's Mr. Spacely.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's absolutely Mr. Spacely. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and I'm watching this and I see his name pop up. I'm like, holy shit, Mel Blanc. And I was like, wasn't he dead by then? No, like he had died by then. It was the last voice role he did was this movie, and he didn't quite finish it.
Holy
They
shit.
had to bring in another guy to voice match him and George Jetson. But this gets made in '88. It comes out in 1990. The original show was 3 seasons, which blew my mind. In 1965. So like
Uh, sorry, I'm gonna cut in there. Francis H says left guy looks like the laughing guy from Letter Media, Red Letter Media. Yeah, from
oh
Red Letter Media.
oh Rich Little. Hey, that's a compliment. I'll take it. You're not the first person to say that I look like Rich Little. Rich Little has a delightful laugh. I will take that as a compliment. But to keep on topic, um, the Jetsons movie. Mel Blanc, last movie he made. Oh yeah, sorry. The Jetsons, 1965, the original show came out. This 15, almost 25 years later, after the show has long since ended, most of the original cast is back for this. Most of them. The only ones who are not back are the guy. I don't
Elroy?
know. Yeah, Elroy's not the original. I don't know if the original Elroy was a kid and that's why. But they tried to get him back, but he just couldn't do it. I think it was like he was too old and he was like at the end of his life. And then Judy Jetson. Judy Jetson is, and this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Judy Jetson is played by, I'm guessing, a celebrity. I have no idea. I just was like, this person must have been famous in the '90s because they had a single name.
I,
Their name was
I
Tiffany.
mean, I would believe she was a singer, considering they had her sing.
Yeah, I'm guessing she must be.
They considering they literally had a music video
Two.
in that
She
movie.
gets two musical
Two.
numbers.
Sorry, two musical
She gets
numbers.
two musical numbers. Yeah, like
She had to have been a
and it's
stunt
like an
cast.
hour 25, and that musical number is at least 2 to 3 minutes long. It is an exceptional waste of time. But yeah, no, her name is Tiffany. I don't know who Tiffany is. I have no clue. I'm guessing she had to have been famous based on the fact that she had one name. Um, no clue. But yeah, she sings a song that it just becomes a music video. It's just a Tiffany music video. I'm guessing she must have been like a pop star or a rock star or something. But no,
Probably.
otherwise it's all the original voice cast, all the original voice cast.
That's impressive.
Right? Like they just don't do that anymore, and it really is. It's a once again, I mean, I guess it's been a while, but the basic plot of it is George Jetson gets a promo. Oh, and then what's funny is they talk about George Jetson, how he works. He works 2 days a week, an hour a week. That's what his job is, and that's enough to support a family.
God, I wish.
That's what in the 1960s they thought that the work week would be 2 day. And he's a literal button pusher. His job is he pushes the button that starts everything. That's what his job is. He's a literal, and so Mr. Spacely determines that he needs a button pusher who'll just push a button, um,
To start the
to
plant.
start the fully automated plant, and it's run by one other guy who's a robot, and it's yeah they have to relocate to this apartment complex, and they all meet friends, and they discover that the where they're mining is actually there's a small community of alien creatures that live there.
Ewoks.
They're basically Ewoks, yeah. And yeah, it's really cute. It's really funny when you're like, oh, yeah, you have to take when you're doing a movie version, and it really is. It's just an hour 25-minute version of the show, and it's like, yeah, you have to escalate this, and how they chose to do it. Oh, we're gonna take the Jetsons out of their regular space. We're gonna put them on the moon or in space, and that's now. And yeah, it blew my mind that just the amount of original talent from the original show. The fact that Hanna-Barbera directed it was crazy to me. I was like, this
Right?
is like we just don't think like this just doesn't exist anymore. Like if they made this today, it would have 5 celebrity voice actors and Chris Pratt would be playing George Jetson. Like
Or the dog.
there's no way, or the dog, yeah. Like there's no way somewhere there wasn't a pitch for a CGI version of this. Like there's just no way there wasn't.
Back then? Was
No,
Toy Story out?
no, I just mean since then. There's no way there hasn't been
Oh,
a
you mean now?
yeah.
Oh.
Like
Yeah,
and
probably.
the thing that another thing that sort of came to me when I was watching it, I was like, I cannot believe this isn't more of a classic, because it's like people remember the Flintstones movie, and that movie's god
Oh.
awful.
Arete says Tiffany is the girl who sang "I Think We're Alone Now."
Oh, I actually do know that song, but
Yeah, yeah.
I only know that song for its parody, the Weird Al version of it, which is "I Think I'm a Clone Now." So that's the only. But
Yeah.
that's the song about how
Da, da, da,
she might be a
da,
lesbian or
da, da,
something.
da, 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 da.
Yeah, da da
And that's
da
all
da
we're gonna do,
da.
so we don't get slapped
Yeah,
by any
probably a copyright strike.
copyright bots.
Okay, I actually do know who she is. That's funny. But she's the one celebrity voice, and yeah, They brought her in to sing a song, so that she could have a
That
song on the
checks.
soundtrack.
So see, I was right. Musician.
Yeah, yeah, she was brought in to have a because this movie
Checks
very much
out.
is about its soundtrack. There's like 2 or 3 needle drops in there, which is like it's
Oh, I
weird.
mean, also just in terms of it being a movie, they needed to pad the runtime, and
Oh
having
yeah,
musical numbers
they'll
absolutely
do
is an
that.
easy way to pad.
It's wild to me that this exists and is so utterly faithful to the cartoon and is basically just a big budgeted version of the cartoon. And then yeah, 4 years later, I think it was 4 years, 3 or 4 years later, the Flintstones movie comes out
Pardon
and
me.
it's awful. Here's my next viral short. I think the Flintstones movie is very, very bad.
The live action one?
Yeah, I hate that movie.
Which
That's another one I
which
don't like.
one?
The one with John
Wasn't there like
Goodman.
two?
There's two, yeah. We've seen one of them in
Uh,
theaters. We saw the Viva Rock Vegas one in
yeah,
theaters.
that's the one I more remember.
The John Goodman one is awful.
Whoopi Goldberg is not Whoopi
No,
Goldberg.
Rosie O'Donnell. No, Rosie O'Donnell.
That's
She's in the original. She's not in.
she's Betty, right?
She's Betty in the original, yeah. And then John Goodman
Yeah,
is Fred Flintstone, and Rick Moranis is Barney. And it's like that movie's
right.
fun, and it looks like a live action version of the cartoon. I made several TikToks about how much I hate the live action Flintstones movie, but it looks really cool, and it's like, oh hey, it's a live action cartoon, isn't that fun? And then the second half of it is about corporate embezzlement and petty arguments and like adults who are mad at each other over an easy solvable conflict that if they just had a 5-minute conversation could be resolved. And it's just like it's about setting up Fred Flintstone for corporate embezzlement crimes, and it's like adult shit where it's like, and I looked it up and I'm like, I can't be the only one who doesn't like this movie. And it's like, no, yeah, at the time even critics were like, yeah, this is supposed to be for kids and kids aren't gonna like this. And I just remember the moment Halle Berry walks in being like, I just don't like this movie. That's one of those ones that maybe one day I'll go back and rewatch to be like, do I still hate this? But
That's one of those ones where I would have to insert that meme from Futurama. I have no strong feelings about this one way or the
well, I
other.
was a big.
I am neutral.
What's funny is, I'm being a big Hanna-Barbera guy for years and years. They were gonna make a live-action Jetsons movie, and I remember we talked about it a bunch of times. But like, how do you make a live-action Jetsons movie? And when it was like 95, 98, we're like, there's no way, there's no tech. Now it's like you could easily make a live-action Jetsons
Oh,
movie.
you could do it.
The
You could do it now.
technology is there to do it, and it would probably look good. But it's
Yeah.
definitely I understand why they've never tried to, because it was speculating on a future that we live in now, and a lot of what they did on that show we have, like, you know, video calls, and I mean that's what we're doing now. Like this was a thing that they showed in the Jetsons, you know,
Really, the only thing we don't have is the flying
the
cars.
flying cars. But it's so funny because in the movie they're very much like, yeah, they have flying cars, but traffic and smog still exists. Like
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't have a very cheery outlook on the future, which I think is funny.
No, they did not.
But yeah, so that was the Jetsons movie. I had no idea it came out. When I was looking through my list, I was like, yeah, I knew Turtles, and I was like, yeah, I knew DuckTales, but I was like, what? Jetsons came out in 90? Huh. I could have sworn that came out in like 89 or 88 or and there's so much in that movie that's like, it's like, yeah, like as much as like it very much was like, yeah, the 1960s speculate by way of the 80s. Like there's a bit where like Judy Jetson goes to like a concert and it's an 80s rock, like pop rock concert.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I remember that.
And
Yeah,
you're like, this is that's why when you're like, oh yeah, I thought this came out in the 80s, I'm like, I could see why you would say that, because the soundtrack and the
yeah.
look of it that's because it was pretty much made in the 80s.
Like in terms of, I guess, in terms of like the animation technique, style, theming, however you want to word it, it very much reminds me of the original Transformers
I could
movie,
see
where
why you
it's
would
like
say that. I could
that
absolutely
is
see why you would say that.
distinctly 80s.
Yeah, it definitely reminds me of that. I could definitely see why you would say that. So,
Um,
with that
it
having
is
been
funny
said,
though, real quick. It is funny that you picked the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, because I was so tempted to pick the second
yeah,
one.
I had a similar experience with Back to the Future, but I was like, but if I'm gonna do that, I have to watch the other two, and then that sort of feels like it's violating the spirit of what this is, which is to watch
Yeah,
something from 1990.
Yeah, I
Um,
had the same thing. That's why it was like if I'd have to watch the first one, and then that's encroaching on your territory,
yeah,
and
yeah, exactly. So now we're gonna move into the second half of this, which is the stuff I hadn't seen, and the theme of this is it's gonna get weird, and it's gonna get weirder as we go along. So we're gonna start off with the first thing I watched was I don't know if some of these you may have heard of, some of them you may not have. But the first one is Dark Man. You heard of Dark Man? No.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
Dark Man is 1990. Obviously, it's Liam Neeson, and
Okay.
it's directed and it's written and it's made by Sam Raimi, and it's crazy because retroactively I can see the influence this movie had on his Spider-Man movies. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
kind of yeah, and it's a weird, very weird movie. It's basically it's Liam Neeson is a scientist and his girlfriend is a district attorney, and she's investigating some real estate guy who is in league with the mob, and she finds like a document basically that connects him, and gives it to Liam Neeson, and so the bad guys show up at Liam Neeson's lab and beat him up a bunch and like basically like disfigure him and turn him into like they burn him and toss him in acid, and it's just really it's very it's like it's meant to be horrifying, but it's one of those movies where it's in the 1990s, so it just comes across comical. Like there's a point where like they all grab him by like various parts of his clothing and like dump him into acid, but it's like a clear thing of acid where they could just like shove him through it and that would be way more efficient, but it's fun. And yeah, so he gets disfigured, and they think he's dead. Like this is really funny shot. There's a lot of really funny green screen moments which have aged very badly that look really silly. There's one where like he get like they set the thing on fire and he gets blown up, and you just see his body, him just go flying, and you hear him scream ah, and he goes flying, and I'm like, when did this come out? Is this pre Schindler's List Liam Neeson? Like is he? And I was like, no, this is before he's famous. I'm like, oh, interesting, because there's a so he gets horribly disfigured, and so now his face is just scarred, and like and he's like in bandages and stuff, like Invisible Man style, and like he's in so much prosthetics and makeup, and I'm like, this must have been before Liam Neeson was really famous, because it seems odd, like to me as someone in 2024. To see like, oh, it's Liam. Why would you cover up Liam Neeson? That's an odd choice. But oh, this is big. Maybe you
Yeah.
didn't have the guts or the juice to be like, no, don't put me in bandages. Um, and so simultaneously, he's a scientist of is he's working on this technology that basically allows him to replicate people like skin basically, and so he's trying to like replicate and rebuild his own face, basically trying to turn himself back into Liam Neeson while also investigating who killed him and why. And so there's various scenes that, like he's disguising himself as the bad guys, and like but he only can replicate he can't replicate their vocal cords, but for whatever reason he's capable of like exactly like he'll just listen to their voice and he can just like imitate them perfectly for some reason. So you see him get blown up and he goes flying and he lands in like water and you think he's dead, and the next scene is like there's this really funny transition of the girlfriend walks up to him at the lab and the lab explodes and she looks on horrified, and it does this hard cut to she's now at the funeral looking sad, and it's just this weird transition. It's really weird, and so it turns out that he's alive, and some lab has picked him up, and they're like, oh yeah, I know he's this homeless guy, he's a John Doe, we don't know who he is, and we've given him this experimental treatment, um, where he now no longer feels any pain. He's super strong, and he has a temper. He's quick to anger. It makes him quick to anger. So it's like it kind of seems like something maybe you shouldn't do to a random homeless person. You know, make them crazy strong, crazy durable, and a hairline trigger. And so yeah, so then the movie's just, and it's honestly it's pretty fun. It's a pretty good movie, and you can see like his influence, how this influenced him. It was really weird because the entire time I'm watching it, I'm like, is this an adaptation of something? Because there's so many moments of like this. Oh, this is where he gets this ability, and it felt like this was supposed to be like I should be recognized. And then I looked it up. And it was like no, there's just two sequels. Um,
As soon as you were like scientist and Sam Raimi, my brain thought of a certain green supervillain who's something of a scientist
Oh,
himself.
it's funny is there's a scene. You remember in Spider-Man 2, the scene where he's in the Doc Ock is in the warehouse, and you see like the warehouse, and he's like, "Whoa!" Well, that scene, there's a scene in this movie it's pretty much identical, where he winds up in a warehouse, and he looks up and he screams, and it's like literally almost shot for shot exactly the same.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So you go, oh, I definitely see the influence. Um, and it ends basically with the entire movie he's trying to like prove that he can still be Liam Neeson and nice and kind, and the girlfriend gets kidnapped, and there's quite a funny line where he's like, oh, you're supposed to be like a good, like he's throughout the movie been like killing off the gang members who killed him basically, and it gets to the end, and the bad guy is just he just keeps monologuing endlessly, and he's like a really goofy silly, like they're on top of like a scaffolding, and he's walking along, and he's doing this really like cheesy monologue, and they end up fighting each other, and he's like about to fall off, and Liam Neeson, Darkman, has him, and he's basically like, if you kill me, you know, you're gonna have to live with it for the rest of your life or whatever. You're gonna have to live with that, and he just kind of lets him go, and he's like, I'm getting used to it. And then at the end he breaks it off with the girl. He's like, yeah, I can't see you anymore. The guy I thought I was, like, a guy I was before, is dead now, and he has this big like, I am the blah blah blah. I am the, you know, typical. Sorry, typical superhero monologue, and then ends with him going, I am Darkman. And I'm like, it just feels like it's supposed to be like a reference to something. And no, yeah, no, he's an original character that Sam Raimi. But most of the time, I was like, I can't believe they haven't tried to remake this. That somebody hasn't tried. There hasn't been a spec script, or like it's another one like, I can't believe somebody hasn't tried to make a more upsetting, more violent, more gross, more unpleasant modern version of this, because it was already like, yeah, he's disfigured and gross looking, and this feels like it somebody, I can't believe someone hasn't tried to make this into a franchise. Certainly Sam Raimi, I can't believe he hasn't pitched a reboot for it, because like you could definitely make this movie today with
I
modern
mean, for
sensibilities
all
and
we
special effects.
know, for all we know, someone has.
Maybe. I mean, to be fair, it's not on my radar. Maybe so. I did see somewhere that they're going to do a remake, and they just haven't yet. It's sitting in production hell somewhere.
Could be.
But yeah, that was my one I hadn't seen. That was very weird, very strange movie. Moving into my second one, which was weird, which was Edward Scissorhands. Edward Scissorhands was very strange. Um, I I didn't love it. I wasn't loving it because I don't want to say I didn't like it entirely, but well, you know what Edward Scissorhands is, right?
I know that it is a guy who has scissors for hands.
And it's Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's pretty much the extent of my
That's
knowledge.
that's all you really need to know. In order for me to, I don't have to explain much. Edward Scissorhands is kind of two bits. It's, my goodness, suburbia and suburban housewives sure are fucking bored. And isn't it weird he has scissors for hands? He's a man
For
and he has scissors for hands. And
hands.
that's it. That's all. It's just those two things. Like, it's that one. There's so many scenes of, he's a man and he has scissors for hands. Isn't that weird? And it's like, he so okay, it's also an advertisement for Avon. Like, basically the plot of it, there isn't really much of a plot, but the very loose plot of it is a Avon saleswoman. Edward Scissorhands is a robot man who was created by a scientist played by Vincent Price, which is kind of weird. And he starts off, all he does is the reason why he has scissors for hands, it's eventually revealed later in the movie, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, is he starts off, he's a little robot that all he does is chop lettuce. And then the inventor, it does never really explain why, just gives him a heart, and over time slowly turns him into Johnny Depp, and on to the point where all he has left is he still has the scissor hands he uses to cut up the lettuce, and he's about to give him hands, regular hands, and he dies of a heart attack or something. He dies of some sort of unspecified illness, and he ends up leaving Edward there alone. And the Avon sales lady is sort of going around town trying to sell her Avon shit, and nobody is interested. Nobody is really interested in her or wants to be her friend. And she winds up at this mansion where Edward is, and she runs into him and is like, "You, for no real reason, it's just kind of like, you shouldn't be here by yourself. Come live with me." And then like invites her to live with him. And like there's all these scenes of like them handing him stuff, and like for whatever reason like there's he can't grab it because he's got scissors for hands, but people keep handing him stuff. It's super weird. Like, he can't grab this. Why do you keep handing? Like there's so many scenes of people handing him cups, like, and then he drops them or can't grab them properly, or like there's so many scenes where he can't open doorknobs, and it's like you people are just being mean at this point. He can't grab stuff. Like, why?
He has a disability. Why are you keep trying to do this to him?
This is an oddly ableist movie. But then he moves in, and then all of a sudden, like, he's this mysterious guy, and all of a sudden, all the suburban white ladies are all of a sudden like interested in her and want to be her friend now, and they show up, and she's like, "So when's the party?" And she's like, "What party? Like the party you're gonna throw to introduce us to your mysterious new friend." And like at one point, one of them, it's like a Desperate Housewife situation. She's real thirsty, and she tries to hump him in a salon chair. It's really weird. And so as it goes on, it's revealed that he's really good with his scissor hands. So he's really good at cutting hedges. So he starts off with he's cutting hedges for people, and the family he's living with, who have basically taken him in as like I guess he's supposed to be a teenager. He doesn't look like a teenager, but I guess he's supposed to be a teenager. So they take him in almost as like a son. And the dad is basically like the dad who's just he's Alan Arkin. He's Alan Arkin. What do you know Alan Arkin from? You remember that movie where it's Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro, and they're boxers?
Yeah, Raging Bull.
Not Raging Bull, but it's basically Raging Bull versus Rocky.
Yeah.
You know the Rocky's coach in that?
Vaguely.
Or,
Murray?
he's also in the Muppet movie. I think he's the tour guide at one point. I can't think of what else you would know Alan Arkin from.
Yeah. He was in the wasn't he in the one where Adam Sandler and them try to steal from the hotel?
Try to steal from the hotel.
Maybe I'm mixing up my stuff, but I know I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's the dad basically, and there's a point where he's cutting hedges, and he's like, I've heard that you aren't charging people for your hedge cutting, and he's like, we got paid in cookies. He's like, cookies aren't paying the bills. And so then eventually it turns like he's cutting hedges, and he sees a little dog, and he cuts the dog's hair, and then he cuts another little dog's hair, and the suburban ladies are like, you should cut my hair, and he starts to develop a burgeoning hair cutting business, yeah. And it's all going well for him, and he's got a thing for the daughter. The daughter's with a guy who's just like a dick to Edward for no reason. Like for most of the movie, everyone is super nice to him, and he's just a super nice guy. He's not done anything bad or given anyone any reason to mistrust him other than the fact that he's got a disability. And this guy is just like a prick to him for like no reason. So he for reasons that are unexplained, because this is an hour and 45-minute movie, he wants to steal from his own dad in order to sell something so he can get enough money to buy a van, because the entire movie him and his friends are all traveling around in like a van, and he wants his own van. And so he tricks Edward into breaking in, because it turns out that Edward is really good at jimmying locks with his scissor hands. He can jimmy locks without breaking the lock,
of course he can,
or causing any damage to the door. And it's super weird because like he has such delicacy that he's so delicate that he can cut people's hair really well and like get these really sharp scissors near people's faces without slicing and dicing their face. But yet he can't grab a thing off the ground or open a door handle. It's really weird. but the boyfriend tricks him into basically breaking into his own place, and the dad has I guess they have a second alarm set up, and so they all leave him, and he gets trapped in the room, and they think he broke in, because he's opened a hair salon and he needs money to run his hair salon, and so they think that he's broken into this house to get money for the hair salon. And so now all the suburban moms who are all into him have all turned on him and now are all mad at him and don't trust him anymore.
Of course.
And he's getting mistreated or whatever, and he naturally gets frustrated. He's getting pissed off that everyone is treating him like shit. And so he's basically taking his frustrations out, like on inanimate things. So like he's walking down the street and he's like slicing, like at one point he gets really mad and he slices like the wallpaper in the house, and he's like scratching up and the dad's like, we don't take out our frustrations that way. And he's basically like, I'm sorry. And then it happens again. They think he's stolen stuff, and everyone's mad at him. He basically, he's keeping around the house, and he's sculpting. He's shaving down an ice sculpture, and there's snow everywhere. And I guess there hasn't been any snow in this town. And the teenage daughter walks out and is marveling in the snow. And she walks up to him and is like interacting with him. And the boyfriend shows up and like distracts him. Basically, he's like, "Hey!" And he moves a little, and he accidentally cuts her face. And the boyfriend's like, "Hey, yeah, get out of here, you! We don't want you around here." And he's like, "Whoa, no, he lives here. You don't. You don't live here. You can't kick him out. What the fuck?" And it's so weird. Like, and the family basically, like, the dad's on the because it's Christmas, and he's on the roof like setting up Christmas decorations. He can see Edward leaving, and he's like, "Hey, Edward, where you going?" And no one ever is like, "Yeah, hey, he lives here. You don't. Fuck you, maybe. Like, you don't get to. You get out. Like, what are you?
Leave.
You leave. Like, you don't
Who
live
are
here.
you?
He lives here.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it's really
get out of here.
And so he gets really mad, and he takes off, and he's like fucking up people's like hedges, all the hedges that he cut. He's like slicing off legs, and there's one point where like he cuts it into something scary and uses it to scare one of the neighbors because they're all hassling him and whatever. And when I was watching that, I'm like, I'm not really digging this. This isn't really doing anything for me. But like, there's a more interesting, or there's another version of this out there in the multiverse where he freaks out and it turns into a murder. Like, it turns into a horror movie, and he just starts killing people, Freddy Krueger style. That's all I can think about. This is like, there's a version of this where like it's like a sad movie where he snaps and murders everyone.
Absolutely. There's.
So then he ends up going back to the house, and the brother there's a little brother, and he's off at a friend's house, and he's coming back, and the boyfriend, she's now broken up with the boyfriend, and because it's the 90s and you can still drink and drive, him and his friend are like drinking. He's like, "Yeah, let's go back to the house," and then as they come back to the house, nearly hit the kid with his car, and with Edward Scissorhands kind of pushes him out of the way, and accidentally in the sort of scuff up accidentally cuts his face, and he runs off and goes back to his place, and where he started off, the mansion or whatever, his home, and the boyfriend, all of a sudden out of nowhere, there's this weird tonal shift where the boyfriend now wants to kill him, and they're fighting. So he shows up there, and the boyfriend is trying to kill him, and Edward like literally stabs him and kills him and throws him off the thing, and is basically like, "Yeah, I have to stay here. I can't go back. I'll never fit in. I'll never belong." And the framing device of the movie is it's the daughter has been telling this is like a fairy tale to her grandkid or whatever, and it turns out that this old lady is actually the teenage girl, and he at the end she never sees him again, and she convinces the town that the teenager and him, they killed each other in the fight, and she's basically like, "I know he's still out there. I know he's still alive because it snows every year at Christmas, and it doesn't snow. It doesn't snow here." And so that's how she knows he's been making ice sculptures. And the last shot of the movie is all the ice sculptures of all the like moments they had together. And yeah, it has a sad ending.
Oh,
And I was like, wow, what a
that's
bummer
sad.
fucking ending. Yeah, yeah. But it's a Tim Burton movie, so and I just was like, this is weird, and it's one joke over and over again, and it just didn't work for me. I was like, I don't know, I didn't really like this too much.
Yes, fair.
And then,
Not everything can be as good as stuff from the 91, you know.
yeah,
I'm just saying.
and finally, did you see the other clip I posted, the weird dialogue in the car of the guy talking?
I did, but it meant nothing to me.
But you saw imagine an hour and a half of that, and
Yeah, that'd be a bit much.
you will have Troll 2. And Troll 2 is one of those movies where if you know it, you know it. And I saw it was in the list of movies. I was like, "Oh my god, I have an excuse to talk about Troll 2."
Troll 2?
What a wildly terrible movie. It's one of those
What happened to Troll 1?
I didn't watch it. Um so okay, let's talk about Troll 2. Troll 2 is one of those um like The Room, Birdemic, like those like bad movies, but so bad they're good. People like them in that, and like, because they're bad kind of movies. And it's about I couldn't even describe to you the dialogue, which is why I posted that video. I was like, oh, I hope Jordan sees this so I don't have to try to describe the dialogue. Here's the plot of Troll 2. So it starts off. There's this little boy. He's being told a story by his grandpa, and number one, this movie does not have any trolls in it, and it is not. It's called Troll 2, but it's not a sequel to Troll 1. It has nothing to do with Troll 1. It doesn't have trolls in it. It's about goblins, and so
Well, that's a misnomer.
this grandpa is telling the story about these goblins who attack and eat everyone, and the ending of the story is that the guy who's fighting the goblins, he gets tricked into basically eating food from the goblins, which turns him into a plant, and then the goblins eat him. And this is all so the grandpa can warn the kid, because it turns out that the grandpa is actually a ghost. He's a ghost, and the kid has been imagining this grandpa Noblin. It's goblin backwards is the way it ends up being. But they're going to this town, and the grandpa's trying to warn them not to go to this town because it's an evil town.
Niblog.
Niblog. I think that's what it is. Niblog. And they're gonna stay there for the summer or whatever. And so the son's trying to convince him not to do it or whatever. And there's also a daughter who has a boyfriend who the conflict is he only wants to hang out with his friends, and he doesn't want to spend time with the family, with the girl. And the girl tells him that he should come with them to stay with them at this place. And she says, be here at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is why that clip from the car. She's upset because he didn't show up, and they waited an extra, according to the dad, they waited an extra hour and a half, and he didn't show up. And then again, the next scene you see, he's actually followed them with his friends. He's brought his friends, and they're staying in an RV. And so yeah, the son's telling them not to go, and they wind up there, and he sees the grandpa on the way there, who turns out he's real. He is really a ghost, and once again he convinces the son to try to get them not to go, and it doesn't work. They wind up there, and he's basically like, they can't eat any of the food. If you eat the food, it turns you into a plant thing, and then the goblins will eat you. And so he pees all over the food, and the dad gets really mad. And there's this really weird exchange where he's like, if you want to go on a hunger strike, we can see who'll win that competition. And it's really very odd. And then okay, have you seen that clip where it's the guy with glasses and he's looking up and it's him going, "Oh my god." It's a meme.
Probably.
I'll show it to you later. You probably have. He goes to, basically he's one of the boyfriend's friends, and they've come up in the in this RV but didn't bring food for some reason. So they go back into town. He goes into town and he goes to the store, and he's like running, and a cop pulls him over and is basically like, "Where are you going, son?" and he's like, "Oh, I'm going into town." He's like, "I'll give you a ride. Eat this cheeseburger." And he eats the cheeseburger, and he gets to the store, and it's like really creepy and unsettling, and all the people are really weird and creepy, and they're all staring at him. And he's like, "Where can I get like meat or whatever?" And like, we don't eat meat. We don't eat meat. And it makes him really sick. So what? No, there's the the other guy, the guy with the glasses. He runs into a girl earlier, and they're both running away from goblins. She's being chased by goblins, and they wind up at this like creepy lady's house, and the creepy lady gives them something to drink or something, and it turns the one chick into plants goo instantly, and then we don't see what happens to the other guy. And the other friend, he goes into town. He's the one who gets picked up by the cops. He starts to feel sick, and he's walking out and he's feeling sick. And one of the townspeople is like, "Oh, we ran into your friend. He went to this house. Go to that house. He'll be there." And very sick, he's like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And then it cuts away from him, and you don't see him for like ever. And then there's a bunch of stuff with the boyfriend, the sister, and it cuts back, and he's now at the house. And it turns out that the stuff that the guy it's slowly turning the other guy into a tree, and so he's just a half tree in a potted plant, and he's like he's unconscious, and the other guy wakes him up, and he's like, "Oh my god, dude, move me!" And so the guy's like slowly dragging this guy in a potted plant like across, just very slowly across the ground, and he's like, "Hurry up!" And he like passes out. He almost passes out, and the evil. It's revealed that she's a goblin later on, but she's also like a witch, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you're whatever." She's excited to see him, and the guy passes out, and he's like, "Don't kill me." And he's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna take part of you." And she goes to like start cutting off bits of him, and like she's like, "Don't worry, it won't hurt. It'll tickle." And he starts to laugh as if he's being tickled, and then the scene ends, and then it's just a cut. And then it's just you just see a jar of green goo, and you don't see what happened to the potted tree guy, and you don't see what happened to the other guy, but it's implied they both got killed. And
I see.
And so then then it turns out that this town is it's a goblin town, and they're all capable of turning. And I guess he did say this earlier, but they can disguise themselves as humans, and they he basically, like the kid, he's spying on them in church, and they're like, meat is bad and humans are bad, and humans poison their bodies when they eat meat and stuff. And he falls through the roof, and he lands in the church, and they're basically they're like threatening to eat him or whatever, and they keep trying to feed him ice cream, like, "Little boys love ice cream, eat the ice cream." And he's like, "No, I don't want to eat the ice cream." And then the dad shows up, and then they try to do that thing where they imply that it's just in the kid's head, but it's like way too late for that, because it's already very apparent that he's not, and they are goblins, and so then.
So, I'm just gonna say it. This movie doesn't sound very good.
Oh, it's terrible. It's a terrible movie. And then they're all really creepy and weird and stuff, and the dad's basically like, "Yeah, we're gonna leave now," and they slowly back out and they leave, and they go back home, and all the people and the neighbors from the church and stuff are all at their place, and they're like throwing them this party, and they're like, "Oh, we felt so bad about what happened at the church that we wanted to make it up to you," and stuff, and the wife and the daughter are there, and they're like, "They made us this feast of food," and it's just pies and cookies and muffins and cupcakes, and it's like, yeah, it's not really food. They made you a bunch of dessert, and the son's like, the son freaks out, and he's like, "Don't eat any of the food. They're trying to turn you into plants. Don't eat any of the food." And the dad's like,
They want to fatten you up.
Well, no, it's the food has magic goo in it that turns them into plants. That's why they can't eat the food. And so the son freaks out, and he's like, "Oh, we can't eat the food. You can't eat the food. Don't eat the food." And the dad gets really mad. He's like, "You're being rude and disrespectful. Go to your room." And the grandpa has been communicated. There's a point in them. They keep saying, "Oh, I see the grandpa. I see the grandpa," and the daughter at one point is in her room, and the grandpa shows up looking for the son, for the grandson, And she's like, "Oh, I saw him. The grandson. He's not crazy." She's like, "I can't sleep in this room." And the son's like, "I'll do it." And so the entire time he keeps going to his room and trying to talk to the grandpa. And so he goes to the room trying to talk to the grandpa. Be like, "Yeah, they're trying to like get my family. What do I do, basically?" And it's really funny because it's like they keep the people keep insisting, like keep handing them food, or like, eat the food, eat the food. And it's like, I don't care if you believe that they're goblins or not, but when someone tells you don't eat the food, and then the people who you're saying don't take the food from are really insistent that you should eat the food, you shouldn't eat the food. That's what I'm saying. Like he's not saying it for no reason, and when they're being really like insistent that you should, it should set off red flags.
Aggressively persistent.
Yeah, that should be like, no, I'm okay, thank you. I'm feeling like maybe we shouldn't. Um, yeah,
I'm certainly thinking we feed it to like the cat
yeah,
first.
exactly. And so then, um, the grandpa does show up, and it's basically like, yeah, I have a corporeal form now, and I was gonna lob this Molotov cocktail at them to cause a distraction. And so then they sneak downstairs, sneak past all the goblins, and just as they're about to like lob the Molotov cocktail, the priest, the leader of the goblins, shows up, and he's like, I actually am a goblin, basically. And then he banishes he uses magic. Turns out the goblins can do magic, and he banishes the goblin.
Of course I can.
He banishes the grandpa to hell, and so the grandpa disappears, and he's gone for the next little bit.
Okay.
And the kid manages to toss the Molotov at the priest, and then he burns to death, and it reveals his true form, which is that he is a goblin. And
Okay.
all of the goblins they're all mad at him, and they're all mad at the family, like, you killed him, you did this, you whatever, and they're like, now we're gonna kill you, and they get weirdly indignant, but it's like, you guys were trying to eat them. I kind of feel like your indignant behavior is not really warranted here.
You don't get to have the moral high ground.
Yeah,
here.
you don't get to have the moral high ground. You were gonna eat them, so like, I feel like you've lost the moral high ground here. And so then the son, what happens next? Basically, it's like the rest of it is they're defending themselves against these goblins, which are just stupid looking costumes. And eventually the grandpa, first they decide that they need to do a seance so they can talk to the grandpa, because obviously now the family believes the son. And so they talk to the grandpa, and he only has basically 10 minutes left before he has to go back to the afterlife. And he gives the kid a bag, and he tells him that he can only use it when the time is right, and that they must basically the evil witch goblin tries to attack them, and then they cut off her hand. She freaks out. She teleports back to her lair, and she's got some sort of magic goblin stone that she uses to like give herself youth again, even though that hasn't really been a plot point in this up until this point. And she grows her hand back and is good again. And the kid, through the grandpa's magic or something, winds up teleporting there, and he gives him the backpack and tells them to use it when the moment is right. And they're trying to like touch the stone and be like, oh, if we use the power of like good, we'll be able to defeat them once and for all. And they're both trying to touch the stone, and it's not working. And the grandpa finally disappears. He's like, I have to go now. I have to leave. And he disappears. And the kid opens the backpack, and it's a bologna sandwich. It's a double-decker bologna sandwich. And they're like, don't eat that. If you eat that, it'll poison you, and you can't eat that. And he looks at them, and he's like, fuck you, basically. And he eats the sandwich. And then it poisons him. It poisons his... Basically, it turns out that poisons the meat. So then the goblins can't touch him. And then he summons the family, and they all touch the stone. And they use the power of goodness to basically to banish the goblins or destroy the goblins. And they win, and it's a happy ending, and they all go home. And they're all basically like, yeah, it's weird that these goblins are a thing, right? And and the mom's eating this salad or lettuce or something. And she's like, oh, this is really, really good. And then he walks away, and then he has like this realization. He comes back, and the mom is now a plant, and they're eating her, and and the goblins are there, and they're like, "Come join us eating your mom, kid," and then that's how it ends.
Okay, that was a wild
And
ride.
apparently they made a sequel. The only reason I know about this movie is because I watched a documentary about it years and years ago. It was like the worst movie ever made, and it was about this. And yeah, it's weird, man. People love this movie. People will show. It's kind of like The Room, where people will do screenings of it, and they'll laugh at the bad lines. And it's one of those like, I don't know. Maybe if I were drunker or higher or with a group of friends, like this would be a fun movie. But like watching it by myself, I was like, I was thankful it was only like an hour and a half, because man, I felt stupider with each passing moment I was watching it. I was like, I can feel my intelligence slowly being burnt away. But of the
That's
three,
funny.
my favorite was Darkman. But it's like this was an example of like, this is why I like this exercise, because it like I've been wanting to watch Troll 2 for years, and I've never had a reason to, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I've been like, I need an excuse to watch this movie, and this gave it to me. And I was like, yeah, it's weird, and like I can't. I'm not even doing a. I'm doing a bad job of describing it to you. I'm not even doing it justice. It's way worse than I made it sound. But like in one of those like, it's fun bad. It's like it's
Like a car crash.
yeah, it's inoffensively bad. Like it's bad, but it's not bad in a way. Apparently part of why it's so bad, part of why the dialogue is so bad, is because none of the crew spoke English. They were all Italian, and only the actors spoke English. And it's one of those ones where I can't believe they didn't like they didn't have that moment. I always wondered, like, do you have that moment of, are we making a bad movie? Like that had to be one where you said the lines, they went cut, and you went, are we making a bad movie?
I mean, you'd be surprised.
Um,
Sometimes people just generally can't tell that what they're making isn't good.
well,
When you're so
some
close to a thing,
yeah.
it's hard to really get that
I mean,
perspective.
it's also when you make a thing out of order, sometimes it's hard to know, like, in isolation, is this going to be bad, or when it comes
That too.
together.
That too.
But yeah, that was my book reports. Things from my childhood, and boy, does it get weird. So that wraps that up. With that having been in mind, we're going to talk about, just real quick. We're going to break down additions to the format. We've already kind of done it. We're gonna keep something you haven't seen and something you have seen, because it gives us more to talk about. So, if you want to participate in the book report, pick something every week from now on. Pick something you have seen and something you haven't seen, and tell us what it is. The other addition is after each book report. I will give out an assignment. That there will be a certain. I like we discussed off air. We like having a bit of structure to the book report. And I like presenting it as a challenge. This is a challenge, and I created this idea with the notion that I was going to challenge Jordan to see stuff that he wouldn't otherwise watch. So, for this week's
No.
assignment,
Please no.
I was motivated. I was inspired by Troll 2. And I was inspired
No, no.
by a TikTok I saw, which was basically find
Oh.
something nice to say. Well, basically, a lot of people enter criticism of a thing looking for something negative to say about it. So I would like to enter into something looking for something positive. So, with that in mind, the assignment this week, Jordan, is you gotta pick a
Don't do this to
movie.
me.
You gotta pick a movie that you don't like, that you didn't like, that you absolutely did not like, and you have to find at least one nice thing to say about it. You have to have one nice
I
thing to
know
say
it.
about it.
I know exactly what it's gonna be, and I hate you for this.
Hey man, mine's also bad. I already know what mine's gonna be, and it's also bad. So like, I think yours might be worse. We were gonna reveal what it was. We've revealed to each other what ours is, but I think for the audience, we're gonna keep it a mystery. Just know that it's gonna be good. Jordan's is gonna be
Gotta
good. It's
gotta
gonna be
tease him
good.
to please him.
Yeah, it's something to look forward to. It's gonna be fun. It might be a bit longer. We might have more to talk. Although this one has probably already gotten pretty long, but I have my own. I have my own challenge. I'm not looking forward to it. I can tell you that. It's
Uh,
it's not gonna be Troll 2 levels of bad. That might be a separate episode. But Yeah, so you got to find a thing that you and the second part, so for the thing you've seen, it's got to be something that you don't like. You got to find something nice to say about it. And for the thing you haven't seen, pick a thing that you didn't watch because of the first thing. So that'll make sense when we come back next week. But so like, you know what? We'll give Jordan's. We'll give the one he's seen. He's got to find something nice to say about Batman versus Superman. That's his challenge. And so his hasn't seen. I'll let you use your imagination. He's gonna pick something that he didn't watch because he hated Batman versus Superman. That's the challenge, and he's got to watch it. I'm sure you can guess what that is. I'm sure you can guess, but if you can't, that's something to look forward to next week. So with that, I'm gonna do the wrap up. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Spur of the Moment. If you're listening to this, Jordan just made an angry face at me. He made a fist and an angry face for those who are listening on Spotify. So we're gonna wrap up though. This has been. Thank you for once again joining us for the Spur of the Moment podcast. If you want to get in touch with the show, and if you want to sponsor the show, or you want to be on the show, or you want to talk to the show, you can contact the show at itsjustinsbusiness@gmail.com. You can also join our Discord. Jordan runs it. We've got all sorts of areas there if you want to suggest stuff. If you have your own idea for an episode, you can throw it there. Obviously, you can leave it in comments. That's also cool. You can find me on TikTok. I'm Justin Spurr on TikTok. I've been trying to do this live on TikTok, but we keep getting cut off midway, so I don't know if I can. But I try to do it there. At least part of the podcast gets to be on TikTok live. But otherwise, I mostly do the same thing there. Jordan, where can we find you?
I do Minecraft Mondays on my Twitch, Zethcore187. Hit me up.
Yep, he will be doing that this Monday on Minecraft Monday.
All Mondays.
Other than that, I think that will be it. We will see you guys next week. We are back. By the way, I forgot to mention this last week. We will be back on Saturdays.